welcome back to part 2 of the Q&A. Yes, I hope you enjoyed last week's and I hope that I answered your questions. And let's get going with part 2. How do you cope with stress? I think I've got lots of different tools that I've learnt over the years to cope with stress. Breathing is the first most important thing. I think when you feel your anxiety creeping up, just take a moment to make sure you're breathing properly. I know that when I get stressed and when I get anxious, I hold my breath, and that's quite a natural thing for people to do. And then you can start to feel a bit rotten and a bit headachy. And so it's really important to regulate your breathing. So that is kind of the most important thing first. Then Talking is really, really important. So whether you're talking to a friend, a partner, whoever it might be, you might want to talk to a therapist. Really, really helpful to share. A problem shared is a problem halved, is what Mum always used to say, and boy, she was wise. So talking is really, really important. And you know, I have done all sorts of things in the past. I find hypnotherapy really, really helpful. I'm hoping to get Kate Finn on to my podcast, Busy House, Happy Home, to chat to us about that. I find homeopathy really helpful for stress. I find talking to a therapist really helpful. It just depends on the stress, what it is that's causes stress, and you know, how big a deal it is. Like if it's a minor stress, then you can just breathe your way through it. If it's a major stress, then you might need to call in some help. And, you know, it might be a friend that's really helpful, but you might need to outsource to, you know, a therapist. But I think my go-to things for quite big stresses would be my wonderful therapist, Estelle, Kate, the hypnotherapist, because she is very, very calming and she's very grounding. She has a wonderful recording of just calming everything down. And I find my hypnotherapist really, homeopathic doctor really, really helpful. And so I will talk to him and say, you know, this is going on, and he can provide a remedy that will just help with what it is at that time in my life. And I found those things really helpful in the past, so hopefully that is helpful for you. Yeah, that is how I cope with stress. How did you and your husband meet? Simon and I met in London. He was friends with my boss. I worked for a property company in Chelsea, and Simon kept coming into the office. It took a while for us to go on our first date, about 1.5 years, but I got to know him and realised that he was a really, really lovely, decent guy. And yeah, that's how we met. Did you always know you wanted children? Yes, I did. I did go through a phase pre-Simon of having a series of not brilliant relationships, and I almost gave up. I got to the point of thinking, oh, I'm never going to meet Mr. Right, it's never going to happen, maybe I'm just going to be a career woman. But Simon came into my life, and I knew that I did always want to be a mother. I used to go and help. We lived in a village for a while, and even as a sort of 13-year-old, I would go and help with a mother up the lane who had tiny little ones, and I'd just go and play with them so she could get jobs done. I've always loved children. I thought that I might want to go and be a teacher, so I did some work experience in a primary school, and yeah, I love children. What did you do before Ask Charlie? I used to run a nightwear business with a girlfriend called Sleepy Cozy, and Nina and I ran it together for I think about 7 years. She then moved down to Somerset, and actually she bought my share in the business and I started Ask Charlie. So I was involved with Sleepy Cozy. I bought the business and Nina came on board about a month later when Gus was a baby. And I did that, but I've done all sorts of things pre having children, from property to nannying to interior design to catering to literally all sorts. I'm happy to turn my hand to anything, and I love learning new things too. Do you own Florence's father, and will you breed from Penny again? No, we don't own Florence's father. He lives down in Wiltshire, and no, we won't breed from Penny again. She had to have a C-section with her last litter with Florence and her brothers, and so we won't breed from her again, but maybe we will from Florence at some point in the future. Who knows? Do you have help with the horses to manage to fit everything into a day? Yes, I have the wonderful, wonderful Di. Di comes Monday to Friday. She mucks out the fields when they're out in the fields. She does basically an hour a day, and she rides Colin twice during the week for me, just to keep him ticking over. If I've suddenly got a really busy week and I can't ride him, then it's difficult to call upon somebody and say, can you come and exercise for me? So I just have Di every week, Monday to Friday, and she rides Colin twice. And so I just know that he's being ridden and he's done, and then I can ride him and enjoy him at weekends or during the week if I want to. And that works really well for us. I was trying to do it all, and it was too much, and it was quite stressful, to be honest. And so having Di's help is invaluable. What is your favourite cake recipe of all time? Really, really, really difficult. I have got my favourite afternoon tea recipes available as a digital download on my website. And all my favourites are in there. I love a chocolate brownie. I love chocolate cake. I love a Victoria sandwich. I love cake, to be honest. And it's really hard for me to pick, but a lovely, lovely Victoria sandwich is probably my favourite. And Mum's chocolate brownies have to be up there as well. It's almost time to potty train my son, and I'd love to know your advice or tips that you might have. Okay. Don't rush them. I think there is no prizes for trying to potty train a child that's not ready, because it's all just going to end in tears from everybody. So have a potty there in the bathroom, and just suggest before they have a bath, do you want to, have a wee on the potty, and see how it goes. And if they're not interested, then just leave it. Just wait until they're showing signs that they want to do it. Because if you rush it and they're not ready, it just takes a lot longer. If they're ready, then actually you can potty train pretty quickly. Really important that when you're potty training, that you're not super busy. So try and think, okay, this week I'm not racing here, there and everywhere, but relatively quiet week with, sort of normal things going on, and you can just be focused. You need to be on it, and praise. Don't if there's an accident, let it go, but praise the positive. So every time they've done a wee on the potty, yes, amazing. My goddaughter was staying, I think in October, and she had a fear of pooing on the loo or the potty, and she used to get really anxious and give herself a tummy ache, and her parents had to go away for a couple of days, and they came to stay with me, and I could tell that she really needed to go, and she was getting a bit crotchety and a bit uncomfortable, and so I sat her on the loo and I sang to her, and we sang. I made up a completely ridiculous poo song, and she pooed, and there were high fives, and there was just, you know, delight, and I gave her a treat and we cracked it. And so, you know, it's really important, lots of praise, whether you do a sticker, you know, chart, whether you do, I'm a big fan of getting like a jar and putting a marble in, or a shell from the beach, or a stone from the garden, or whatever it might be, putting them in a jar, and when the jar's full, they get, you know, something that they really want, to go to the toy shop and choose something, or whatever it might be. But positive encouragement is really key. And just wait until they're showing signs of being ready, and you know, you can go and choose some fun pants. We had, I think, Thomas the Tank Engine ones, and mine loved those. And you know, the summertime is a great time to potty train as well, because they can be running around. Make sure that you've got a potty upstairs and a potty downstairs, or a step to get to the loo, because there's nothing worse than them needing to go and not being able to see where it is. So you can just say, the potty's here if you need it, and, you know, be guided by them. Where is your navy fur gilet from? It's pre-loved, and it's so old, and actually I always carry my handbag on my right shoulder. My shoulder is wearing thin. It was, I think, originally from France. I bought it pre-loved about, oh my goodness, 7 years ago, maybe even longer, so I'm sorry. It is wonderful, and I love it. It's like my uniform. It's my comfort blanket. I love that item in my wardrobe, but I'm sorry that that you can't go out and buy it. But if anyone's listening that does sell fur gilets, navy fur gilets, faux fur gilets, get in touch, let us know, because I have so many questions of people saying, where's it from? What would you wear to a summer's evening drinks party? The dress that I bought from Juliana Hill shop Circle in Hazelmere a few weeks ago, I would wear that if it's a lovely warm summer's evening. I hate getting cold. When I get cold, my lips turn blue, which is not very attractive. So important to make sure you've got a wrap or something to keep cozy. But I will also insert some pictures here of other options of things that I would wear if it was like a bit of a cooler evening or something like that. So yeah, there are some pictures here of options for you. But don't get cold. Make sure you've got something with you that you can wrap up. Is my top tip. Preparing your child ahead of a transition to boarding school, and also hacks for boarding kit. Really, really good question. And I think, you know, Archie's off to boarding school in September, and so we are busy preparing that. The decision for him to go to boarding school has very, very much come from him. It's been driven by him, not by us. We would be very happy if he wanted to be at a local school and be day. We would love that, but we have spent time trying to convince him of that. But he is ready for an adventure. So make sure that your child is keen to go and wants to go. Mum always used to say it takes a term to settle in a new school, and I think that is really good advice. And sometimes it can take a bit of time. So if they are struggling to settle, have open conversations with them and the house parent, your child's tutor. Make sure that everyone's aware that they may be struggling a little bit. If they are really, really not settled after, like really unsettled after a couple of terms, look at other options for them, because it may just not be the right thing for your child, and let them know. So we've had conversations with Archie. If it doesn't work out, we can change it. And he knows that from the outset. He knows that from now. And so it's not like you are going, it's going to work, and you're going to stay there for the next 5 years. He knows that there is an option, if he's really unhappy, to change. And that's really important that your children know that. With regards to all of their kit, just name everything. Absolutely everything. Pants, socks, shoes, name it all. I Sharpie shoes with a Sharpie pen, and I name tape with old-fashioned name tapes. I stitch them in by hand onto all their clothes. I don't like the iron-on ones because they can come off, and well, some of them are then a pain to get off. So I'm a big fan of pre-loved, secondhand shop, swap shop, all of that. So if you have stitched a name tape in by hand, it's really easy to unpick it and stitch it into, you know, another item of clothing as they grow, as they outgrow. I don't throw the name tapes away, I reuse them. And so, you know, start getting organised now. Make sure you've got a list of everything that they need and don't leave it to the last minute. Start naming everything, start getting everything organised so there's not that last minute panic just before they go back. Where do you get your energy from? This matcha. Lee Linton's matcha is the best, and I have 2 to 3 every single day, and I love it. It doesn't just give me energy, it's great for hair, for nails, for your metabolism, for bloating, for your immune system. It's packed full of loads of antioxidants. It is incredible stuff. I love it. The only time I haven't taken it was when I had a really bad tummy bug recently, and Lee actually had a tummy bug not that long ago, and she didn't drink matcha when she had her tummy bug, and she shared that with us, and I was like, oh, if I had a tummy bug, I would definitely drink matcha. But actually, I felt so unwell. I was struggling to keep water in. I could completely relate. So I had 3 days of no matcha, but I love it. I'm back on it. It's amazing stuff. I only buy it from her because it's really good quality. I have tried others, but they just, to be honest, it's a waste of money. And sometimes it's better to buy decent quality of something that's a really good product, and than wasting your money on a cheaper alternative that actually isn't packed full of the goodness that this is. So I get my energy from here, but I also listen to my body, and if I'm tired, I will have a rest. I will sometimes set my alarm, you know, it depends how long I've got, but if I've got like 20 minutes, I will set my alarm for 20 minutes and just go and lie on the bed. I have been known, if I'm really tired, to pull into a lay-by, or not really a lay-by because it's not so safe, but you know, like a service station or something. If I'm driving back from London and I suddenly feel tired, I will just pull in to a service station and set my alarm for 20 minutes and have a quick power nap, recharge, and then I'm good to go. So yeah, that's what I do. I would love your advice on choosing a puppy, and then how on earth do you train it? I think you need to think carefully about the breed, your lifestyle, where you live, and what would, you know, suit you. For example, so we had Splash, our old Labrador, who Simon had when I met him, and then I'm going back years, and then we had Pippa. And Pippa had never been on her own, and when Splash died, we knew that we needed to get another dog. And we looked at rehoming a King Charles Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. That's the breed. And actually, we did a lot of research, and we had a meeting with somebody locally that's on the rehoming programme, and they have quite a few problems, and they can get grass seeds in their ears, and they need quite a lot of brushing and maintenance. And actually, with a young family, decided that that was a breed that we weren't going to go for. And we decided, because I wanted a little dog, I didn't want another big Labrador, and we then decided that you know, a little dog. And it was a friend of ours who told us about this litter of Jack Russell cross miniature wirehair Daxies, which Tess and Maud are. And, you know, they're great little dogs for our family, and also low maintenance. And when you've got a young family, that's quite important. If you've got time for, you know, grooming, for washing. You know, if you get a lovely, beautiful white poodle and live in the countryside, it's probably going to need a wash every time you get back from a walk, and probably quite a lot of grooming. So think about your lifestyle and what breed fits in with your family. Do quite a lot of research. I think behaviour is really, really important. You know, I love Labradors, but for the first couple of years, they are really full on. I mean, Lola is wonderful, but she is bursting full of energy and she needs quite a lot of time and quite a lot of attention. But I know that if I give her that time and attention and she's trained really well, she will then be a wonderful dog for, you know, 10 years plus. So, you know, you need to, you know, think carefully about it. Penny has been, you know, a dream, so easy, you know, not burst, just a really kind of easy breed. I love little miniature wire-haired Daxies. They're my favourite of the Dachshund family. I think they have a wonderful nature. So do lots of research, and then training, you know, it's a bit like a child. You know, you just need to be on it to begin with. You know, every time they wee and poo outside, loads and loads of praise. And they and having a routine with them, having a good routine, and they know what happens when, is really key. So mine know that they go out for a wee in the morning and a poo, they come in and they have some breakfast, and they expect that, and then they know what time they're fed. They know when I put them to bed at night that that's bed, you know, and I don't hear from them unless there's a problem, which is really, really good. So it's just having a routine. And I do have, and I'll put a link in the description of this video. I've got my top tips for bringing a puppy home, and I can share that with you. And that's what I give when we have when we had our 2 litters from Penny, and prior we had a litter from Tess quite a few years ago, which is what I gave to the new owners for, you know, something to refer back to and just a bit of advice. So I will link that down below, but hopefully that is helpful. Do you keep a journal? No, I don't. I used to when I was much younger, but to be honest, I don't have time. I'd love to keep a journal. I really, really, really would. But the moment I wake up, I'm out of bed at it. And the moment I get into bed at night, I'm gone. And there isn't that much downtime in between, to be honest. I think journaling is a wonderful thing, and it is something that I would like to make time for, because I think there are so many positives. I do have a vision board which I keep adding to and changing things, and I find that really helpful. So I have my vision board, which I talk about in my Efficient Home course, and I think it's really important to have that. And so I don't journal, but I do have my vision board instead. There's little somebody at the door, so I'll be back in a mo. The last question before I talk about my dad. How old are you? 42 in July. My birthday is July, and yeah, I'm a Cancerian. Now, this question, Charlie, you never talk about your dad. That would be my question. Yes, I don't often talk about dad, and it hasn't, well, where do I start? I don't really know. I'm going to go back to the beginning. My parents met when Mum was 18. They were, Dad was in the Air Force, based up in Scotland, and Mum went up to Scotland with a friend, and they met in a bar, in a hotel bar, and Dad proposed to her 5 days after meeting her. And then he was posted out to the Middle East quite soon after that, which is why I think he proposed so quickly. Basically got back and they got married. So she didn't know him very well. Dad is a very, very, very bright man, extremely bright, the most phenomenal brain, but most certainly on the spectrum. We don't know quite how or what on the spectrum, but definitely he is. And I think they had a very happy marriage in the early years. I think they were married for quite a long time pre-having children. I think Mum was maybe 28 when she had my brother and 30 when she had me. So they were married for quite a long time before they had children. And obviously Mum was really, really young. She had grown up with a Jewish mother. Her father wasn't Jewish, but quite a strict upbringing. And Grandma taught her, you make your bed, you lie in it. Mummy had converted to the Church of England when she was 13, and she was very religious, and she took her wedding vows, very, very seriously. And she had, wholeheartedly believed that she was going to be married to my father for the rest of her life. And Dad left the Air Force. They moved down south, and long story, but he started selling private jets. Mum set him up in business. Mum was sort of the business brains and the people person behind the business, and Dad was the academic brain. And he actually, going back to the Air Force, he flew search and rescue, because this is really important. He flew search and rescue over the Torrey Canyon oil disaster off the coast of Cornwall, and he saw the effects on the environment. And he started focusing on the environment in a massive, massive way in the late 70s, early 80s, till today, to be honest. And it became his sort of obsession. So, he designed engines that were environmentally friendly. He tried to re-engine all the Boeing BAC 111 planes. He was really, really close to it. But because he doesn't have normal people skills, he would get angry and frustrated when people didn't listen to him. And then the door would be closed. And then he would be really furious that they weren't listening to him. And he's known to a lot of people as the professor from the planet Zog, because they get it, but they just don't get him and his ways of getting his ideas across. And that's where him and Mum was such a phenomenal team together, because she had these wonderful, incredible people skills that sadly Dad was lacking. And over the years, Dad got more and more frustrated by people not listening to him. Oh, the dogs are all barking now. He would get more and more frustrated, and he would lecture anybody. I mean, literally anybody, from the postman to us as children. I mean, I remember one of his projects was called Low Emission Opposed Pistons Advanced Reciprocating Developments. For short, it was called Leopard. And I knew as a child the entire lecture, speech, and also how this engine and design worked. He would get us stripping down engines. He was very intense. I think it's possibly an understatement. And unfortunately, over the years of this frustration built up, and it became impossible to live with him. And my brother and I often said to Mum, if you want to leave, you can, we're behind you. It was difficult to invite friends over. I remember I had one friend, I remember it vividly. She came to stay, and he was having a rage, and I was having to sort of close all the doors because I didn't want her to hear him having this massive rage. But he wouldn't remember that he had the rage. He would say, oh, I'm as gentle as a lamb. I never raised my voice. I've never done anything to hurt anybody. Which was really hard growing up as a child, when you can see what's going on, and then you're told by somebody that you love and actually really admire, because he is right on so many levels, and I can understand why he gets so frustrated and so angry. But it did a lot of damage, a huge, huge, huge amount of damage to us as a family. you know, I mentioned that it was difficult to invite people over, and Mum was so gregarious and outgoing that she wanted to have, you know, lots of, we lived in a big house, she wanted to have lots of events, she did a lot of charity work, but Dad just became too difficult because you didn't know when he was going to get overly passionate about whatever it was. And so one day there was a situation at home that was really, really scary, and we left, basically. I never went back to that house again. Mum and Ed did, because obviously they needed to pack everything up. It was just before my GCSEs, and I had glandular fever, so the timing was not great, and I was at a school that I was not very happy at because it was very academic and I wasn't. So it was a really, really, really tricky time. Anyway, unfortunately, Dad's obsession turned from the environment to us and getting his family back together, and it was a really difficult number of years. Really, really horrible, scary. And I remember it was September 1996, and I remember thinking, I am going through this so one day I can help other people. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional sort of talking about it. Normally I'm absolutely fine talking about it, but this is something that I have wanted to share with you all. But it's it's difficult to talk about because he's my father, and in some ways he was an amazing father when we were little, and then I have just great sadness because of the damage that he did to Mum. Yeah, I have great sadness of the damage that he did to Mum. I just had to compose myself for a moment. And to me and my brother. I mean, it had huge, huge, huge impacts. Their divorce went on for 9 years. And Mum was on the verge of a breakdown for such a long period of that time, because she never wanted to divorce him. She never wanted to be on her own, but she couldn't live with him anymore. And he wasn't willing to accept that there was anything wrong. Now, this is a thing that I have struggled with, and this is, I think, is why I haven't talked about it, because it's still a process that I am working through with my therapist. Dad is obviously on the spectrum, but he won't be diagnosed, which is difficult because you don't know then what you're working with. So a lot of his behaviour he's not in control of. But then sometimes he is. And so the goalposts get changed. So you don't know where you are. So I have tried for so many years to sort of sit down and discuss things. But Dad doesn't ever recall being anything but gentle and kind, and that's really hard to get your head around. It's really hard. And I think when somebody like that then fixates on, I'm not going to go into all the details because we'd be here for a very long time, and you don't need to know it all, but it was tough. It was really, really a horrid time. Mum moved down to North Devon to get as far away from Dad as possible. She lived, she made sure that he didn't know her whereabouts for a long period of time. And actually I changed school, because I was very unhappy, but also B, the school that I then went to had wonderful security. And so Dad just couldn't rock up. And I knew that I could go about my day without him appearing, because at my previous school he had, and it was just distressing. So yeah, that is probably why I don't talk about Dad very often. I probably should, because it hopefully will help other people, me talking about it. And it's why, you know, Mum had, and I've touched on this numerous times, I believe if you're in a relationship with somebody that is loving, kind, nurturing, supportive, then you can flourish and fly as a person. Whereas if you're in a relationship with somebody that is not a positive, healthy relationship for you, then it damages you as a person, as an individual. You know, you can't flourish under those circumstances. And I think, you know, that is my great sadness of the damage that the relationship caused on Mum and my brother and I. And it's so sad that I can't have an easy relationship with him today. I would love to, and I have tried so hard. Things were a lot better when I introduced Simon to him, and we went through a period of time of seeing him on a more regular basis. But unfortunately, he wants to talk to the children about all the negatives of my mother, and that's not fair and that's not right. And so I have had to not stop them from seeing him, and I have really open conversations with the children and say, you know, if you want to see Grandpa, we can arrange to go and see him, but it will be for sort of a short period of time. He won't interact with them. I've tried to sort of say, you know, Grandpa, would you do this with Gus? Would you, you know, build this, or would you do that? No, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. And, you know, he's not interested in their lives. He doesn't want to communicate with them. He just wants to talk about, you know, the things that he's really obsessed with at the moment, which is not appropriate for children to hear. And it's tricky. It is really tricky, and years and years and years of therapy, and it's an ongoing thing, and I'm very aware that it's an ongoing process. I could have totally turned my back on him and shut him out of my life. There was a period of about 3 years where I didn't talk to him at all. And I think what's been hard is over the years, I've tried so hard to sort of rebuild the relationship, and it will get to about 6 months in, and then he will start talking about Mum in a really negative way, and I'll say, Dad, leave it. You know, it's a past. Let's leave the past. And he won't, and that's what I find really hard. So I asked him to put everything that he wanted to say to me in writing. He's very good at writing very, very long letters. And I got a 25-page dossier, as he called it, about my mother, because one of his obsessions became sort of her and everything that was wrong with her, and it was all her fault, which was not fair. So I asked him to put it all in writing so I could read it, and I could, you know, and then I could read it, I could appreciate his point of view, and then we could move forward. But unfortunately, he kept wanting to talk about it, and so it's been tricky. I did, as did my brother, when Mum changed her surname back to her maiden name, and my brother and I did the same thing, and it felt the right thing to do at the time, and that was back in 2000. So it was not easy. It was not easy at all, and I think it's why I haven't talked about it, because because once you start talking about it, you know, where do you stop? And I'm happy for you guys to ask questions. I'm happy, you know, to share and to talk about it. Obviously, I am still working through things as well and processing them, because it is a great sadness in my life that I don't have this easy, lovely relationship with my father that I would so love. But I have had wonderful father figures from other people, and many of you that have been following me for a long time will know I've talked about Padre, Uncle Gerald. So the Padre and his wife, Auntie Margaret, he was the Air Force chaplain when my father was in the Air Force up in Kinloss, Lossiemouth. And so that friendship goes back so many years. And actually Uncle Gerald has been an incredible, I mean, sadly he died 18 months ago, but an incredible father figure in my life. And whenever things got difficult, or whenever I needed, you know, to talk through things with somebody in a fatherly way, I could turn to him. And I did, and I would often go up to Scotland and spend time with him and Auntie Margaret, and Uncle Gerald and I would go fishing together, and we would, you know, just talk and spend time together. So he was a wonderful role model and father figure in my life. And my uncle, Mum's younger brother, has been incredibly supportive and kind, and I can pick up the phone day or night to him and talk about anything. And it's so lovely. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, because I am so lucky to have wonderful people in my life that I can turn to that's not my father. And I was really hoping that I wasn't going to get emotional talking to you guys about it. That's why I've left it to the very end, because it's difficult and it's sad, and yeah, and I think that's why it's not. I know it's why I've had, you know, lots of therapy, hypnotherapy, you know, all of those things to kind of support me through it, so I can kind of process it and understand it and deal with it. So on the whole, I can hold it all together and not be an emotional wreck, and be, you know, the best version of myself that I can be. But I do think that this is a conversation I've wanted to have. I've wanted to have since that girl back in 1996 thinking, I'm going through this, so one day I can help others. And on that note, I'm going to end this week's video. I'm not going to go and have a big cry, I promise. But I am going to end it here. Thank you for listening, and thank you. Thank you. Lots of love, and I will see you next week when I'm not emotional, not talking about something that's difficult and raw. Anyway, lots of love. Bye.